Hey beautiful. So today I want to talk about how we can fight negative thoughts, because unfortunately they're going to come, but if we have the tools, then we could definitely fight back. So when it comes to negative thinking, the first thing that we have to do is recognize the source of it all. I like to think of our brains as the door to our house or the window to our house. If it's left unlocked, then we're going to allow the air to come in and anything else to come in to the house. And then we could be wondering, like, where does that come from, or where is that breeze coming from? Well, it started with having the door unlocked and the window unlocked. Now, when you think of the door being unlocked or the window, you have these latches that help to keep them locked. And when they're unlocked, I like to think of those as triggers. Now, some of our everyday triggers, it could be, or not so everyday triggers, but triggers in general. It could come from other people's opinions of what they think about us. It could come from our personal self-sabotage of self-doubt. It could also come from feelings of rejection, abandonment, just a number of places. And so those are the triggers or the latches that keeps the door or the window open. So with that being said, the first thing we have to do is to renew our minds daily. Not just once a day, but every time you wake up or every time you think about it throughout your day, you have to renew your mind. And that comes from spending time with the Lord and knowing His promises, and just knowing what He believes about you is the truth. And when we do that, that's what helps us to get those negative thoughts out of here. So the first thing, when it comes to renewing our minds, you have to ask yourself, what has been consuming your thoughts lately? What are your thoughts? What are your concerns? What have you been worrying about that's been consuming you? And then you have to realize that if you've been trying to solve the problem, and of course it's not going anywhere, and you're causing this other affliction on yourself, then you're also acting out of alignment with the Word of God. Because the Word of God, He wants us to give it all to Him. He doesn't want us to worry, and He doesn't want us to just have that much burden on ourselves. So it's a reminder that we have to give it all to Him. Now, going back to fighting negative thoughts, when it comes to one of the ways to fight those thoughts is by having the armor of God. Now, you can look at it in your own time. Ephesians chapter 6, starting at verse 10, where it talks about the full armor of God. But towards the end, in particular, it's verse 17. It says, take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. So after you put on all your armor on you, you're putting on the helmet of salvation, and you're putting on taking that sword, which is the Word of God. Now, without these two things, nothing else matters, because if you're not consistently renewing your mind, then you won't know put on the belt of truth. You won't know what's true and what's not true, because you haven't been renewing your mind daily in His presence and knowing what He says about you. So putting on the helmet of salvation is so important, because it helps you to really focus on what God has for you and what He has said about you. When I think about the helmets, I think about those old school helmets with those things on the side. They could look to the left and look to the right, but they could only look so far. I do believe that those kind of helmets, it protected their head, and it also helped them to stay focused on what's ahead. And so with that helmet of salvation, I think it's a reminder that when you have it on, then you have no choice but to look ahead. So you're not distracted with what other people are saying, or you're not distracted with the enemy. Because going to number 2, you have to remember who you're really fighting. That same chapter, Ephesians chapter 6, in the beginning, let's see where it's at. Verse 12, it says, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. So once you know that the enemy is just trying to throw you off, he's trying to attack you with darts of negative thoughts and everything, now you know who you're fighting. You're not fighting who you see in the grocery store, or that family member, or somebody at your job, but you're really fighting this, which is the dark world, prince of this dark world. So you have to remind yourself of that, and that's another way to fight off those negative thoughts. The third way that I'll say is that you have to know that the victory is yours. Now, I know it could be hard, especially when you're in the middle of the battle. You're like, ugh, it doesn't feel like the victory is mine. But when you're suited up in the armor of God and you're consistently meditating on His word, maybe you need to take a fast to remind yourself and let go of distractions, including food, to remind yourself of that. But doing what you need to do in order to know that the victory is already yours. And this is how you fight the battle. Now, of course, sometimes it's not going to be easy, but reminding yourself that you have the victory, you know what's the outcome going to be. So keep fighting the fight and don't give up. I will talk to you next time, and share this video with someone that comes to mind. Bye, beautiful.